Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming Herbie J. Pilato. He is a author, TV personality, producer, historian. He wrote a book about Mary Tyler Moore called Mary. This year is the 50th anniversary of her TV show, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. And I'm having him on today to talk about her life legacy and career as a nice little tribute to her. And I can't wait. I had heard Herbie, I'd seen Herbie on Dan Schneider's virtual podcast on YouTube. And as you all know, I can't stand virtual podcasts, but I was watching, but I was also listening more at the same time. I was doing other things while listening, and I enjoyed what Herbie had to say, so I had to have him come on the show, and it's going to be a nice tribute. So, here is my interview with Herbie J. Pilato.
Hello.
Hey, Herbie. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I am very good. Very good. This is a great honor. Thank you for taking the time today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
So, starting with you, you've been a historian, TV personality, author, producer, etc. for a long time, as a lot of people may know. But how did your interest in Mary Tyler Moore particularly start?
Well, I did a book on Elizabeth Montgomery. I did the Bewitched book, and then I did her biography, Switch Upon a Star, The Bewitched Life and Career of Elizabeth Montgomery. And after I finished that, I wanted to continue. I always felt I wanted to continue writing more extensive biographies on classic TV female stars of the 60s. And Mary Tyler Moore and Elizabeth Montgomery had so many similarities. Both had fathers who were demanding, both felt typecast by, their roles on television. Mary on Dick Van Dyke and the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and Elizabeth, of course, on Bewitched. So I just felt there were many, many similarities in that the Mary Tyler Moore biography would be the perfect follow-up to the Elizabeth Montgomery biography.
Right. Did you actually know her or ever get to meet her?
No. Unlike Elizabeth Montgomery, who I did know, I did not know Mary, and I tried to reach out to her, and then she shortly passed away right as I was trying to do that. So, but I still felt compelled to write her story because, yes, there had been other biographies that were written about her in the past, like in the 80s, and certainly she did her own autobiographies, memoirs, whatever you want to call them. But there had never been a biography about her entire life and career beyond, before, and after the Dick Van Dyke Show and the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Even in the last 10 years of her life, she didn't even cover that because the last book she wrote was like 2003 or something. So there was a whole decade of her life that was not covered that I wanted to cover.
How long did it take to write the book about Mary?
The biography for Elizabeth took forever, but the Mary book was, because, I got it down and really how to do it, was about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, along those lines. And I always wanted to, the Twitch book and my previous books were very nice pop culture, artifacts or whatnot. But I really, really worked hard to make the Mary biography not only the best biography that I wrote, but the best book I ever wrote. I worked very hard to be objective and to give a full picture of this very complex person.
You think all the time you spent writing the Elizabeth Montgomery book, there probably would have been more time, and you could have met Mary had that didn't happen?
I probably, I've been thinking about doing the Mary book for a long time. Quite frankly, I was trying to sell it for a long time. So there was a point where I really could have just reached out to her. I just didn't want to reach out to her without a contract. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Without a book contract. I just didn't want to say, hi, I'm writing this book and I'd like to talk to you. And then have her say, well, do you have a contract? And the people say no. So, it just wasn't meant to be. And sometimes when you're not intrinsically involved with the subject, you do have the opportunity to write, as I say, a more objective book, which I think I did.
Absolutely. Now, getting into Mary's life, she grew up with an alcoholic mother, right?
Correct.
Yes, and she inherited that from her.
Ultimately, I mean, that's what they say, that, alcoholism is definitely an inherited thing. But in combination with all of that, with Mary in particular, she was sexually abused as a kid.
Oh.
She, her parents were strict in general. When she got on the Mary Tyler Moore show, really that year or shortly after, in 71 there, she was diagnosed as diabetes. So
yeah,
she had a lot of personal problems. And, that literally, combined with the heredity thing, probably drove her, to drink or to reach out and to get some kind of comfort. And, back in the day when she was abused, and even certainly when she was diagnosed with all these issues, physical, they didn't have the therapies that they do today. And God bless her, even throughout her complex life, and her up and downs in life, she still did as much as she could for the Junior Diabetes Foundation. She was a spokesperson for that. Loved animals. So it wasn't though she wasn't a good person. She was a terrific person, but she was a complex person.
Right. Does anyone know if the alcohol contributed to the diabetes or not?
Well, it's not a good thing, when you're diabetic and alcoholic, or if you're drinking a lot, and that doesn't do anything for your body. So it kind of maybe happened at the same time, but she really was never going to admit it. She kind of was forced to admit it because apparently one of the tabloids, at least that's what I heard, one of the tabloids was going to, announce it, and so she just says, you know what, let me just state this. And then she became this, this spokesperson, ultimately for both diabetes and, to some sense, alcoholism. But, in the midst of all that, she was having extensive plastic surgery, and it's not a good thing when you're a diabetic and an alcoholic, and then you're having all this plastic surgery. I always felt that had she not had, okay, one nose job, fine. Maybe a cheek job, okay. But she kept on doing it. And, it's a lot of stress. And I'm all for looking as best as you can look, okay?
Yeah.
I'm considering myself having a hair transplant, all right? But like the Michael Jackson route of constantly messing with your face, whoever she looked like in the end was not the person that we all fell in love with in the beginning.
Yeah, I was shocked about that when I found out about that. I mean, it seemed like for many years. I mean, she always looked the same for the most part. Just younger.
Absolutely, and she had those adorable full cheeks. On the Dick Van Dyke Show and in the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and up until I don't know 83 or 84, 85, something like that, or maybe 90. But then she started messing with her cheeks, and she had several different, teeth implants, and it was painful to watch. And she knew that it wasn't always a good thing to have the plastic surgery, and she admitted that. And then she kept on doing it. So, what can you do?
Strange, yeah. How did she get to Hollywood?
I believe she had like an uncle or something who was an agent, because she had lived in New York with her parents. She was born in Brooklyn. And then at some point they moved to Los Angeles, and either a friend or an uncle, I believe, was like an agent, and that's how it began. But she had, studied dance and singing, and she always wanted to be a movie musical star. But by the time that she got into the movies, you know, they weren't making MGM musicals anymore, or like they used to.
Yeah.
And, you know, then she finally did make a musical, which was after the Dick Van Dyke Show with Thoroughly Modern Millie, but that was really more Julie Andrews' vehicle. And then Mary really didn't become a movie star. She tried in like the 60s and early 70s, but none of them worked. The last she did in 69 was like Change of Habit with Elvis, where she played a nun, and Elvis was a surgeon. So there you go. I don't know where they were thinking when they came up with that scenario, but then she made Ordinary People, you know, in like 81, 1980, something like that.
1980,
and that's when she became this very respected film actress. And then she really didn't capture movie stardom after that. Made, you know, six and a half weeks or that movie with Dudley Moore, and it just wasn't coming together for her. And then she tried to return to TV. She tried to recapture a sitcom stardom, and she just never found the right vehicle. And then she started messing with her face, and that was the end of that.
Wow. Was she always aiming for high stardom?
I think she always. I mean, I don't know too many actors and actresses who, you know, say they don't want to be a star. I mean, I think it's a lot of bull when actors go, "Oh, yeah, I want to study the craft, and I really want to be this person." Okay, fine. But you want to be famous. And, you know, and that's generally, I think everybody wanted to be famous when they get into acting. I know I did when I started out in acting. Yeah, of course I think she shot for stardom, and she did become a star. And you know, and like Elizabeth Montgomery and so many others, you know, they never really dealt with it well. It's a tough thing. It's not a normal life. You know, you're not a normal person when you are in theater and TV and film and art. It's not above average people, but not regular people. That they live life differently and they see things differently and they add to the culture, but in many ways they lose out on everyday things that each one of us cherish, like going to the supermarket or, you know, just regular life stuff.
Yeah, it could be certainly insane if you're too famous. You know, you can't go anywhere, especially nowadays. But she paid her dues by doing a lot of guest starring roles on a lot of TV shows. I noticed she was on a lot of Western shows like Wanted Dead or Alive, Riverboat, The Deputy. She even was in Richard Donner's very first movie, X-15, with Charles Bronson.
That's right, and I interviewed Stanley Livingston, who was also in that film, about his memories of Mary. Yeah, she did a whole bunch of stuff before the Dick Van Dyke Show, and you know, Karen Kramer, who was also up for the role of Laura Petrie on the show, she told me that she had worked with Mary in a Western before, and that when she had auditioned for Laura Petrie, and, you know, she heard Mary, heard about Mary's audition, or heard Mary's voice. She remembers hearing Mary's voice on the Western, and then cooperating that with the Laura Petrie audition. She thought, man, that's Laura Petrie. Nobody could say, "Oh, Rob," like Mary Tyler Moore.
Yeah. It boggles my mind, though, how she would get cast on the Dick Van Dyke Show because she was so young, like 23 or something, whereas everyone was like 35 or 40 on that show. Did they think that she looked older?
No, actually, Dick Van Dyke was a little concerned about that, too. He was like, you know, wait a minute, this girl is 10 years younger than me. You know, I don't know if people are going to believe that she's my wife. But the great thing is that when Carl Reiner had auditioned Mary, and she was referred to Carl Reiner for the audition, actually, by Sheldon Leonard and Danny Thomas, because Mary had auditioned for to replace the actress who was leaving the Danny Thomas show to play Danny Thomas's daughter. But Danny Thomas is like, you know, with that little nose, honey, no one's ever going to believe you're my daughter. So, however, they remembered her, and when they were looking for the Laura Petrie and Dick Van Dyke Show, and all those guys were, you know, the production company for the Dick Van Dyke Show as well as the Danny Thomas Show, Carl Reiner put his hand on Mary's head right when he heard her speak, walked her down to Sheldon Lennon's office with his hand over her head and said, look, this is Laura. So they just knew. It didn't matter that she was too young. Her talent, her spark, whatever it was, she had that thing that they wanted for Laura, and they hired her.
Yeah. So how was her working relationship with Dick? Because I had heard that she didn't get along particularly with Rosemary.
Yeah, she did not get along with Rosemary. Well, Rosemary felt that, it was supposed to be her show, that she was supposed to be the female star.
Huh.
But when Laura came along, when Mary Tyler Moore came along, and they just realized they had gold, and that they shifted a lot of the storylines to the Petrie home, because it was supposed to be mostly about the office. But what also contributed to that was that Grant Tinker was an ad exec on the show before he married Mary. I mean, he met Mary on the show.
Mm-hmm.
He was already married. She left her first husband for Grant, and Grant had the power to say, look, guys, I really think you need to shift the show to focus more on Mary. But as far as, getting along with Dick Van Dyke, they had a crush on each other. They admitted that.
Mm-hmm.
Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore, but they were both married at the time, and they really didn't pursue it. Or maybe it was just a secret crush, I don't know, but they did admit they had some kind of crush. But they got along famously, and Mary was tough, though. I mean, she was tough, and she admitted that. I mean, she wanted to run MTM, for gosh sakes. Even though she said Grant Tinker did most of the business, she still had a lot of what, went to say and what went down or what went up on an MTM. So she was a tough person. She was a tough businesswoman, but she was, again, a complex person, but a good person.
Mm-hmm. And there's that famous story during that time, 15-year-old Rob Reiner grabbed her ass or something.
Yeah, I guess he did. And, and finally, Mary had to tell Carl Reiner, could you please have Rob stop grabbing, and she said my ASS. So, and she admitted that, too. She talked about that on, I think, the David Letterman show, who she became a friend with, because she had, hired him on one of her variety show attempts. And then he would always return the favor and have her on all the time. But then Rob Reiner had addressed the issue, too. It's certainly not anything anybody could do today, Yeah. Whether you're a little kid or not. That would not be acceptable behavior in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's definitely changed. Was she able to handle success well during those early years?
I think so. I think when she left the show, the Dick Van Dyke show, which ultimately was her idea, and I feel, according to the interviews also that I had uncovered, ultimately Grant Tinker had mentioned that it was Mary's decision to leave the show, and I think Carl Reiner would have gone on with the show, and I think Dick Van Dyke would have gone on, but Mary wanted to end it and go into movies. However, she did not make it into movies. Grant Tinker knew television, but he didn't know movies, and he made poor choices. And ultimately, she returned to television because she failed as a movie star. And she did a TV special called Dick Van Dyke and the Other Woman. They reunited. It was 69, 1970, something like that, 69. And CBS and the viewers that aired on CBS, they fell in love with those two all over again. And that's when CBS said, hey, man, look, we got to give this woman her own show. And then a year after that, there was the new Dick Van Dyke show. And Mary Tyler Moore and Dick Van Dyke were back on TV, but in two separate sitcoms.
Mm-hmm. So the aforementioned Change of Habit, that's probably the most well-known of her post-Laura Petrie movie roles and stuff. Did she have a good working relationship with Elvis?
Yeah, I guess she had gone down in history as saying that she was the one person who did not sleep with Elvis, or the one leading lady of his who did not sleep with Elvis.
Wow, that's...
Apparently, I don't know if he had flirtations with her, but she made it clear that she never slept with him. So.
Yeah, I think she actually might be the second. I think Diane McBain didn't sleep with Elvis either.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. But with the Mary Tyler Moore show, when the show was being created and stuff. She wanted to do a show that was woman empowering, right?
No, I mean, they didn't set out to do, to change women's liberation or to go on to the dovetails or ducktails or coattails of women's liberation. It just kind of happened at the same time. No one said, hey, let's make this show about an independent female who's going to do... No, they didn't set out to do that. It was just something that was happening at the time. In fact, when the first version of the show, they had married a divorcee who, instead of just someone who broke up with her boyfriend who wanted to start a new life. And when test audiences first saw it, they were like, wait a minute, Mary Tyler Moore divorced Dick Van Dyke? How dare she? And they resented that. The test audiences resented that. And so that's when they switched it a little bit. And they made it that she was, just broke up with her boyfriend and she was moving to Minneapolis to start a new life. And then she ended up inspiring countless women across the country and around the world to go after, to be equal with men and go for women's rights and to be career women. All of that happened as a result, kind of sort of at the same time, simultaneously with the Mary Tyler Moore Show. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't something they set out to do. You know what I mean? It just happened.
It just happened. Yeah, it was synergy that just came together. And I really think, too, I mean, it set the stage for many single woman shows. I mean, there was a lot where the single woman had, kids later, like Alice and One Day at a Time and stuff like that.
Well, absolutely. However, that girl, and Mary Tyler Moore admitted this as well, that girl paved the way for, the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And before that, there was, the Ann Southern Show, that she was an independent worker or independent female who worked in an office or whatnot. And Rosemarie on the Dick Van Dyke Show. I mean, one of the reasons why she kind of resented Mary even later is she always felt that the Mary Tyler Moore Show was really based on Sally Rogers' character, some fashion. So there was just a lot of resentment, in that area. But yeah, in general, it was Ann Southern, that girl, Mary Tyler Moore, that really paved the way ultimately for the female independent career woman.
That's interesting. Wow, I didn't even realize that. When the show premiered, was it a hit out of the gate, or was it like a Seinfeld situation where it took a while?
Yeah, I don't think it was a hit out that first year. I think it was like on Tuesday. It debuted on a Tuesday in 1970, and then it found its way to Saturday nights. And I believe Mary was on. Let's see. It was for a while. It was All in the Family, Bridget Loves Bernie, Mary Tyler Moore, Dick Van Dyke, and Carol Burnett, the new Dick Van Dyke, and Carol Burnett. So, yeah, and then around 72, 73, it just was, it was All in the Family, MASH, Mary Tyler Moore, Bob Newhart, which was a MTM production, and then Carol Burnett, and it was just an amazing, Saturday night, like so many people remember.
Yeah, that reminds me, how did MTM come about?
Well, it just was like, they just decided to, form their own production company. And when Mary Tyler Moore Show finally became such a huge hit, CBS reached out to them and said, okay, what else you got? And then it was the Bob Newhart Show. And then there were spin-offs from Mary Tyler Moore with Rhoda and Phyllis. And then later in the 80s, it was St. Elsewhere and
Hill Street Blues.
Hill Street Blues, I think, right?
Yeah.
And the White Shadow. And then Lou Grant.
Yeah.
He became the first TV character in history to spin off from a half-hour sitcom into a one-hour drama. That was kind of amazing. Yeah, it was just MTN just kept on expanding and expanding and expanding, all because of the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Did MTM eventually close?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think at some point Mary sold off everything. to Fox or whatever, and sold MTM to Fox and all of that. And, Grant, usually, not all the time, but usually when you have the star, when you're married to the star of a show, and you're the producer, manager, husband, and essentially that's what Grant was, usually, not always, but usually when the show ends, so does the marriage. I mean, when the Mary Tyler Moore show ended, Grant Tinker and Mary Tyler Moore divorced. Okay? He didn't want her to do the variety shows. She insisted on it, and it was because of that their marriage fell apart. MTM still they were business partners for after a little bit of that, but ultimately that folded too. Elizabeth Montgomery and Bill Asher, they were married on Bewitched. He was a producer-director on Bewitched. Show ended, the marriage ended. Carol Burnett and Joe Hamilton. When the Carol Burnett show ended, the marriage ended. Sonny and Cher. That kind of led to the ending of the original Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, but they're divorced. And they tried to come back, but ultimately it didn't work. So again, I'm not saying that every business or every marriage in Hollywood is a business partnership, but a lot of the times it is.
Yeah. I've talked to two people associated with the show, Susan Silver, the first female writer, and Joyce Bulifant, who was married to Bill Asher as well. And
right.
She played Marie Slaughter. Yeah, they both said that Mary was absolutely lovely, and they never really got to see that dark side of her, or that diva side. But there was a lot of people. There was a few people on the show, at least, that saw that side of her, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, they did, and look, she's the star of a show. You've got pressures galore. It's hard to be nice all the time when you've got so much pressure. I mean, look what's going on with Ellen. I mean, who knows what's really happening with that show? Who knows if it's a political thing that those who happen to be liberal who are attacking Ellen now because she posed with Bush. I mean, who knows? But all I know is that when you're the star of a show, like Mary was and like Elizabeth Montgomery was, it's a lot of pressure. And when you're also the business head, as Mary was, and to some extent as Elizabeth was, or as Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, there's a lot of pressure. And you can't be nice 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's insane to think that. And when you're in the public eye, whatever issues you might have are exacerbated 100%. So there's a lot going on here. There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I'm having Ed Asner on in a few weeks, so hopefully he can shed some light.
Yeah, well, he had issues with her too, but more so after the show ended, when they did a TV movie together, and I never can remember the name of it. But they did a TV movie together, and he was the producer, and she was the star, and he was also in it as well. But she had issues with him being the producer, the boss this time, where she had always been the boss before. And he had told me on the first season of my talk show, then again with Herbie Pilato, which is on Amazon Prime and Amazon Prime UK, he said that she didn't like the way she looked. So she felt uncomfortable with the way she looked. And again, that was because of plastic surgery. So she set out to destroy that movie. And in the press and things like that. So, look, again, we're all human beings. We all make mistakes. I don't know anybody who's perfect. Do you?
No.
I don't.
No.
But when you're in the public eye, man, it's tough. It is tough.
I know a lot of people who think they're perfect, but not actually are perfect.
Me too, man. Me too.
Yeah. And during that time, too, I was reading that she admitted that she alienated herself from her son because her schedule was so busy.
Yeah, that's the one thing that she really, really, really wished she could have had a do-over on, was to be a better mother. She was obsessed with becoming a star during the Dick Van Dyke Show days, and Grant Tinker, too. He had raised kids by then, he had his own other children from his previous wife, so he was busy. with those kids. It was tough for poor little Richie. Also, ironically enough, the same name as the character on Dick Van Dyke Show. Rob and Laura's Rob and Laura's son was named Richie, and then Mary Tyler Moore's son was named Richie, although I think they spelled it differently. Yeah, it was tough for that kid, it was tough. It was tough.
Yeah. Now, I think that Ordinary People is a great movie, and her performance in it is wonderful. How did she even get that part?
Well, it goes back to the Dark Side thing. Her and Robert Redford, who directed the movie, were neighbors in Malibu. And he used to see her sitting in the sun, and for whatever reason, he would say to himself, boy, she looks like she's got a dark side. So he went up to her one day, on the beach and said, I'd like you to do this movie. And she had always had a crush on him as a young actress. So it was really interesting that happened. And, many people felt that dark side that we saw in that movie was who Mary was. But I do know one thing, that when people would approach her and say, oh boy, I wish I was like Mary Richards, on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. And she would say, yeah, me too.
Yeah. I remember that quote.
She was. I respect her a lot. Respect her, however you want to say it, because she was as honest as she could be about herself. She talked about her flaws, whether it was forced to because of alcoholism or whether it was, the plastic surgery. She admitted it. Whether she wasn't as great a mom. She addressed all those issues as honestly as she could, and I give her props for that, man. I think she was a dynamite person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she got an Academy Award nomination, but why do you think she didn't win?
I don't know. She should have won because she got the Golden Globe that year, I believe. We're talking for Ordinary People, and usually the Golden Globe is the precursor to the Academy Award. I think she got robbed. Who did win? Do you remember?
Let me look it up.
She should have won. But Hollywood is a very jealous place. Elizabeth Montgomery, she got nominated countless times for Bewitched, but she was the daughter of Robert Montgomery, which a lot of people resented because she grew up in Hollywood. She was beautiful, which a lot of people resented. She was a star, which a lot of people resented. And she did not play the Hollywood game of going to the parties, which is really important when you're, not when you want to get nominated.
Right.
So I believe Mary, juxtaposed to that, Mary was a party person. She would go to those parties, but who the heck knows why she wasn't, or why she didn't win. She should have. She should have.
Yeah. It was Sissy Spacek won for Coal Miner's Daughter, and she was great.
Well, there you go. Usually, and here we go, this usually thing again. Yeah. But usually when an actor or an actress does a real-life role, like a biography of a real-life person, as Sissy did with Loretta Young, what's her name, the singer, country singer?
Patsy Cline? Or was it Loretta Young?
For Coal Miner's Daughter. Who was it? That was Loretta...
It was Loretta Young, yeah.
No, it wasn't Loretta Young.
Oh, no.
It was Loretta Lynn.
Loretta Lynn, yeah, sorry.
Okay. Loretta Young was on TV. Loretta Lynn, usually when an actress or an actor does a movie role based on a real life person, they usually get the Oscar. The Academy loves it when actors play other actors. Mm-hmm. So that's why. There you go. There's the answer. Our Sissy Spacek won because she was playing another actress, and the Academy loved that.
Yeah, do you think it might be possible, too, that her performance left a bad taste in the Academy's mouth because it was pretty close to her real-life personality?
I don't know. I don't know if they were thinking about that at the time. Mm-hmm. I don't know. There had to be some kind of jealousy in there somewhere, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Whatever it was jealousy.
Yeah. And then she did 6 Weeks, which you mentioned before. That was okay. I love it when she played James Gardner's wife in Heart Sounds.
Yeah, that was terrific. And she did. I loved her in everything.
Yeah.
She was just adorable. It was just, she did a lot. And she was always remain current, kind of like Betty White. God bless her.
Yeah.
So she hung in there. Even the last 10 years of her life, even though she didn't work a lot, she was still visible, whether it was on Letterman or whatnot, or cameos on Hot in Cleveland with Betty White. She still stayed current. The last thing she did was the Rachel Ray show with Dick Van Dyke, when they did a special tribute to the Dick Van Dyke show, where Rachel Ray redid her set, like Robin Laura's living room. And then the next day, Mary was scheduled for surgery to get something, that tumor or whatever it was in her brain, removed. And she just never really recovered from that, and that was the end of it.
Yeah. I mean, even a slow plotting movie like Just Between Friends, she's great in.
You just love watching her. I mean, she had star quality. Even the variety shows, which were really bad, I loved them. Because it's Mary Tyler Moore for her.
Yeah. She had all these shows later, like Mary and Annie McGuire and New York News, and they were all horrible. I remember I saw at least one or two of those and stuff. Why do you think they all failed and they weren't good?
Well, I think Annie McGuire was probably the best of the lot. But again, by that time, she had a new hair, she had new cheekbones, new teeth. It's like, what? Who is this person? And then it was a half-hour dramedy, and people weren't, I don't know, at the time they were doing Hooperman and Buffalo Bill, all these half-hour dramedies. And so she tried to follow in that, and it was really a well-done show, but it was the wrong vehicle for her. At the same time, Dick Van Dyke had done Dick Van Dyke and Company with his son, which is a sitcom. They videotaped with an audience. And so CBS put them side by side again, and it wasn't working because they were so different. New York News, oh my God. She had fiery red hair.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And she was skinny. She had more surgery. It's like, she played a not nice person at all.
Yeah.
You gotta be likable when you do a TV show. Even when your character is unlikable, the performance has to be likable. And I say this all the time regarding JR and Larry Hagman. JR on Dallas was an unlikable character. But Larry Hagman's performance as JR was very likable. You loved watching him be evil.
Yeah.
On Mary Tyler Moore, when she was doing it on New York News, oh my God. There was a show in '85 that she did called Mary.
Yeah.
It was a sitcom with James Ferrantino, and I liked that show. Mary didn't like that show. She thought the characters were too mean. It was really an edgy version of the Mary Tyler Moore show is what it was.
Yeah.
But she ended that show. She said, take it off. But I liked it. I thought it was fine, and I thought it was doing fine in the ratings, but she ended it. So I think that was her best shot at sitcom stardom, again, after the Mary Tyler Moore show, but she destroyed it. So.
You think maybe she should have done an hour drama series?
I don't know. I mean, if she had not done the surgery, probably. But having a new face on Mary Tyler Moore in a new format is too much. I mean, look what they did with Mary and Rhoda, which to me goes down in history as one of the worst TV movies of all time.
Yeah.
Where they tried to reunite those two. You can't have a show that you love. It's a half-hour sitcom filmed in front of an audience, and then 20 years later have it build an audience of love, an increasing audience of love, and then try to do a reunion movie of a half-hour sitcom in front of an audience with, and you make it a movie like it's a movie. It's like, when I saw Mary Road, I'm like, what? Where? Who? What? Where's the audience? You know?
Yeah.
And then, again, Valerie Harper, God bless her, looked beautiful in that movie. Mary, no, did not. And again, it was because of the surgery. So that was jarring. And that was a backdoor pilot for a new Marion Rhoda series that they had been planning. But Mary wanted, or Valerie Harper wanted a little more creative control. And, you know, they didn't always get along. They had their ups and downs, too. And so Mary didn't want to give it to her, and then the show just never happened. I think, you know, people were just thrown by it as well. You know, they weren't that crazy about it in general. So.
Do you think, in retrospect, Grant Tinker not only kept her career going, but he also broke her career as well?
I'm going to say yeah. I'm going to say yeah.
I agree, too.
Because he wasn't, I mean, yeah, he made mistakes with her in the movies that she did between Dick Van Dyke Show and Mary Tyler Moore Show, but he tried to tell her, don't do the variety show, you know, and she says, no, I want to, and she, you know, it was not the right decision, and then they divorced because that, ultimately, that was that broke the camel's back, the stick that broke the camel's back. And he wasn't there for her career later on. And, yeah, he was a very wise guy when it came to TV. And had he been there with her, she would have had another hit. He reeled her in. If she would become upset on the set, he was there to reel her in. If she became upset on some of the other shows, and he wasn't there, well, she just self-destructed.
Yeah, I think, because I see the timeline here, you know, they got divorced in 81, that's the year of the Academy Award nomination, and then after that, you know, every failed movie, every TV show happened to her after that.
Yeah.
So I think it was a big contributing factor.
Yeah.
You mentioned before about Letterman. Yeah, I remember one time she was on Letterman, and she said that she had a hidden talent that she wanted to show the audience, and she took a glass of water and drank it and then burped.
Oh, she's something. She was something.
I never forgot that. I wish it was on YouTube. I looked for it not too long ago. It's a long time ago, like maybe about 25 years ago or something.
Adorable.
Yeah. So have you gotten a lot of feedback about the book?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have enjoyed it. Closer Weekly, actors David Selby, I mean, got a lot of great reviews. And again, I worked so hard on it. I'm not sure what my next book is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like it to be, I guess, another classic TV actress from that era, but who knows? I'm just so proud of the Mary book, and now that the Mary Tyler Moore Show is celebrating the 50th anniversary, it's such a nice tie-in. Anyone who reads the book and buys the book, I guarantee will love it. It's filled with so many beautiful pictures, and again, the most concise, in-depth, full-picture life story of her entire existence, professionally and personally. There's not another book out there like it, and I'm really proud of it. And it's on Amazon, of course, and Amazon.com. You could go to my website and order personally signed copies, but quite frankly, it's a lot cheaper if you just go to Amazon. And you can either get the hardcover or the paperback. And for some reason, the paperback is more expensive, so you can get a better deal if you get the hardcover on Amazon.com.
I'm definitely going to check it out, Herbie. Would you write a book about a classic TV actress who's still alive?
Yes, I would.
Yeah.
Yes, I would. Yes, I would. I do have a couple in mind, but you know what? I work very hard, and it has to be the right contract, and it has to be the right person for me to move forward on. Because quite frankly, at this point in my life, you know, along with my show and all my books and my blogs and whatnot, mm-hmm. I've interviewed everybody I've always wanted to interview. I've met everybody I've always wanted to meet. I've written about everybody I've always wanted to write about. So I'm pretty good right now, you know?
Yeah.
So whatever happens after this, to me, is extra, is how I look at it.
Well, that's a wonderful way of looking at it. Well, Herbie, I thank you so much for coming on today, and I hope the next book you write is a pleasant experience, and I will definitely check out Mary. I think you got so much great knowledge about her and stuff that it's going to be a fascinating read.
Well, thank you so much, Tommy, and I got to say, you're a very cordial host, and it's been fun talking with you. Thank you for letting me talk. It's a little too much, but thank you, because...
Well, they want to hear you, not me.
Well, you know, a lot of hosts today, and this is what I try to do with my own show. I try to ask the question and sit back and let the guests talk, and that was I also mimic that from Johnny Carson. That's what made him a great host. But anyway, thank you so much, Tom, for having me on the show. I appreciate it. You all, if you're listening out there, Mary, the Marriage Hell and More story is available on Amazon.com. And blessings to y'all, and stay safe.
Thank you, sir. You stay safe and have a great day.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Herbie J. Pilato. Ain't he a cool dude? Oh, very nice man, great knowledge about Mary, and I was happy to let him talk. He's a great talker. And check out his book, Mary. It's available on his website, autographed, or cheaper on Amazon.com. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, add me as a friend on Facebook, join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes!